Okay, so we've got our jewel loom all set up. We have our metal rod inserted into the holes. And now we're ready to make the warp threads, which is the most important part of working on a loom. It's all about the tension. So in your kit, we are working with the leather cording, unless you chose the vegan option for the hemp, which is super cool, and it's the same process. So it's just a different material. So what I'm going to do is take the jewel loom that is in front of me on my mat, and I'm going to turn it over so that that back button is closest to my body. Now what I'm going to do is take the cording of choice, in this case it's leather, and I'm going to make what I would refer to as a little loop, a little air loop. So I'm starting the process of my knot, and it's just easier for me if I start it like this so that I can have control over it when I place it onto the button. So I'm going to do that right now, and I'm just attaching it to the back button. And I just give it a little tug because when you are working with leather cording, it's not super duper strong. So it does have a little bit of a stretch in it, and it could, actually tear if you are really strong and aggressive and you pull really tight. So this is not the time to do that, okay? So I'm just giving it a nice little tug, and I'm gonna go back and I'm going to make another little knot. And for giggles, I'm gonna do a third. And what I wanna show you, and this is really important, is that the knot is closest to my body and centered in the button. So that when I do the next step, which is to take the cording and place it just randomly onto the groove. So I just place it, okay, watch really close because this starts the dance. So you see how I have my hand, I'm holding the loom, and then I'm flipping it forward. And I'm just bringing it down. I'm just doing like an eyeball type of count. I don't want you to worry too much about, is it 9 grooves over exactly or what have you. Just place it into a groove. Go forward again, wrap it around that back button, and we're gonna skip 3 grooves. So 1, 2, 3, and then we place the cord into the 4th groove, flip it back towards me, come up to the top here, and 1, 2, 3, lay it down. Are you with me? I'll give you a moment to catch up. And actually what I do want to suggest is that you watch me first. Okay, if you want to do it along with me, that's totally cool. But why don't you watch me first, and then we can do it again together. And you know what? Practice. Don't be too hard on yourself with this one. It's always a good idea. In fact, in my classes, I always make everybody take themselves apart and do it again because it really is that important to get this right. So bring it towards me. And I just want to point out, so see here on the back, in most traditional looms, when you're working on a loom, you're going around and around and around, and then all this becomes waste. So that is why the buttons are so important, because they are allowing us to not have any waste, okay? So again, we're gonna skip 3. I've gotten pretty good at eyeballing. 1, 2, 3. Meet it up at the bottom. 1, 2, 3. Wrap it around the back button. Come up. Let's see if I eyeballed that one. 1, 2, 3. Bring it back up to the top. 1, 2, 3. Now we are working with 3 beads across, so it's always one more warp thread than it is beads. So if you take a look, I've got 4 warps. So Now I would be ready to turn it over again and knot it. But as I mentioned, I'm going to do it one more time so that you can watch the dance, okay? And I may not talk a lot so that you can concentrate. So let's take this apart. All right. So going back to the beginning, I took the material that I'm working with, and in this case it's the leather cording. I tied it to the back button that's closest to my body. I grabbed the cording and I pulled it over to the side. I flipped my Jewel Loom forward, placed it down, wrapped it around the back button, bring it up, skip 3 grooves, bring it up to the top, skip 3 grooves, wrap it around that back button, skip 3 grooves, bring it down to the bottom, 1, 2, 3, skip 3 grooves, wrap it around that back button again, skip 3, and up, 1, 2, 3. So then, as I said, what you would do is take your excess cord, wrap it around that back button just a couple of times to give you like a nice little anchor, okay? And then I take that tail and I will slide it under all the warps here. So you can see how the excess tail is coming under the warps, all those little extra tails. And then I go back through the loop. And then I'm just, you know, giving it a little tug, because remember, this leather cording is not as taut as like a beading thread, but it's so beautiful. So I will do that a couple of times, like 3. I seem to like 3 knots. Okay, so what was that, 2 and 3. Now I want you to practice doing these warps until you really get it right, okay? So don't be, you know, too stressed out about it. The whole idea is that you have a really nice base to work from. Now, the next most important thing to do is that we need to release and remove the rod. And the way that I do that is I grab the rod and I just bring it out. And sometimes if it does that, I'll go to the other side, because you see how the tension will, it's just the way that it's in the different holes. And so if it won't come out that first time on the top hole, just turn yourself around and it'll pop out on the second. So, oh, nice. That's what you want to hear. Hopefully you can hear that. It's like a guitar. Very cool. So that's the base that you want to get to. Super important that you remove the rod when you're working with beading thread or a leather cording. What it does is it expands the Jewel Loom so that this base gets really nice and tight. Okay, perfect. So let's move on.